Welcome back, Dolphins. We're going to discuss something real quick because I wasn't going to make a video. I didn't think they were practicing today, and I didn't think there was anything to make a video about. And then, of course, the Dolphins put out their depth chart, and it completely screws with everything you think about. So we're going to discuss it right now. I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about, and we'll talk about it afterwards. All right, Dolphins. So we're going to talk about something that I wasn't going to make a video, but I saw this depth chart. With the offense, it already is what it is. James Daniels, all that stuff. I think it looks solid. If you look at the offensive line, I like the offensive line. Darren Waller starting. The one thing that I'm surprised about is that Pharaoh Brown and Julian Hill are in front of Tanner Connor, because Tanner Connor's been doing pretty well, and I'm hearing he's playing with like Tua and stuff like that. So I don't know. That's just strange to me that Julian Hill is in front of Tanner Connor. That's why I don't know if this is like well, I guess it is. Izukanma's been putting in some work, so I think Izukanma might have a little bit of fun. It probably is going to be, maybe Malik Washington, Izukanma out there with, Theo Weiss and all that. But, the offense is what it is. But something that's very interesting that I wanted to talk about, which I think I said this in one of my previous videos, is this is something that could have possibly happened, but they're doing it in a different way, which, number one, the first interesting thing is that Benito Jones is starting in front of Kenneth Grant. Take that what you will. But that's very interesting to me that Benito Jones is in front of Kenneth Grant because he's our first round pick. I don't know what that means. This is why I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, something else could have been going on. But what we're talking about here is something I talked about before, which was that they would run like a Sam Will and a Mike linebacker set instead of like a 3-4 with two outside linebackers. And it looks like with this depth chart, what they're trying to do is, which I would understand it completely, and actually it makes a lot of sense because of what I've been hearing in practice, where you have Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb turn into defensive ends, where their primary goal is pass rushing and setting the edge, and you have Jalen Phillips, as the Sam linebacker that can cover in all of this stuff, with Jordan Brooks and Dodson in a 4-3 defense, which would make a lot of sense because you could play a lot more zone with that, and you wouldn't be putting Bradley Chubb and Chop Robinson in unfortunate, unnecessary situations. I see a lot of the time they would always drop some of these guys back in coverage. Jalen Phillips is probably the best that you can drop into coverage, and he kind of is the best one to do that with out of all the people. So something that is very interesting is that he is going to be that Sam linebacker, with the Mike being Jordan Brooks and the Will linebacker being, or the other way around. I think I'm mixing that up. But you're going to have these guys doing that, and you have much more of a run blocking set, or not a run stopping set with 4 defensive linemen. And what you can do is play much more in a base defense. You don't have to go into a nickel or anything like that. You can play much more into a base defense and be able to be successful at that with something like this. I actually kind of like this, if I could be real with you. And the reason why I like this is because, when you're having the 3-4 where you have the 3 interior guys, you're putting basically the outside linebackers in different positions that they aren't normally good at. And the reason behind that is because, Chop Robinson and Bradley Chubb, those guys are primarily pass rushers. They're primarily guys that get after the quarterback and, do what they need to do. So you're giving them a lot more things that they need to do. And there was not one singular time when I saw Chop or Bradley Chubb any good in a zone coverage or anything like that. You're putting them in situations that you don't need to do that, which if you switch the defense, now you have 2 defensive tackles. You don't need a nose tackle. Kenneth Grant doesn't need to be a nose tackle, and once he gains prowess, which I think right now it's just because he's a rookie, he's learning stuff, and he switches with that, you have 2 big boys right in the middle, and then you have Chop and Bradley Chubb setting the edge, and then also you don't have to go past your base defense. You don't have to blitz. You have all the pass rushers. Like, you got to think of this. If your defensive line consists of Bradley Chubb, Chop, and Sealer, and I'm even hearing that Kenneth Grant, I know Benito Jones is there, but I'm even hearing that Kenneth Grant has a pretty good twitch, and he's pretty good at rushing the passer. You have 4 guys that can get after the quarterback. You don't need to have, like, a nickel. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need to have that. You can have, I mean, it will be there, but you can run a base defense running zone, and you don't always have to have a nickel on the field. So right now, seeing, obviously, Mike Hilton is the starting nickel. That was no surprise there. One of the other things I'm going to talk about, too, is that Storm Duck, I'm hearing, is looking like they found another gem, kind of similar to Kader Kohu. And then Kendall Sheffield, that's what's crazy to me. Kendall Sheffield over Jack Jones, because I thought Jack Jones was showing a lot more than Kendall, because Kendall was getting burnt all up and down the field. So, running this type of defense, I mean, I'm looking at it right now as we talk. I think this is actually the defense that we needed to run. If you just have Sealer and then you have, I don't know, Kenneth Grant or whatever, you're basically using your outside linebackers to blitz most of the time. That's what we were essentially doing. So you would have a 5 pass rushing set. But what I like so much about this is the Dolphins are kind of seeing a little bit of what Philly was doing, where you have a 4 pass rushing set that can get home. And that's what you need. So it's going to allow, us to play much more of a cover 3 type of zone, having much more of a zone-centric defense, and just allowing the front 4 to get after the quarterback, and you're not putting your guys in unnecessary situations. I think having Jalen Phillips is like the Sam or the Will linebacker, where he can kind of roam the field, be a robber, or he can also blitz and pass rush. That's going to be interesting. And what I can really honestly, I'm like envisioning this right now, where you have these 4 rushing, and you're going to have sets where you disguise. I think they're going to move everybody around, and you're going to disguise, a Jalen Phillips rushing the passer. So can you imagine this? I just want you to think of this right now, where you have a defensive play where Chop, Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Bradley Chubb, and Jalen Phillips are rushing the passer. It's like a defense we've never seen before, because you had a NASCAR package before. This one, you will have Chop Robinson, Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant probably, Bradley Chubb, and then on the outside, you have Jalen Phillips all rushing the passer. I just want you guys to take a second to think of that right now. I didn't even think of this, because I was thinking like doing the 4-3, having Willie Gay out there. I wasn't even thinking of them doing something like this, where you have Jalen Phillips as the outside linebacker, and he can literally roam. He can roam, and you can push him, and there can be sets where literally 5 people are blitzing after the quarterback. That's insane. Can you imagine Chop, Chubb, Jalen, and Sealer all coming after you, right? Like, who do you guard? Somebody's going to win. That's going to be, bro. That's going to be nuts. I can't even quantify that right there. Like, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but imagine there's going to be plays, if they run this style of defense, where Chop, Sealer, Bradley Chubb, Kenneth Grant, and Jalen Phillips are all rushing you against your 5. Your 5 against that 5. That's going to be wild, because you have to, it's going to force teams, and what this is going to actually do, it's going to force teams to keep their tight end blocking. That's what it's going to force you to do, because if you have these guys coming at you every single play, you have to double team somebody if they're rushing 4, and if they're rushing 5, Jalen Phillips is hitting home. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the reality of the situation. If you keep your 5, you either play everybody one-on-one, which Zach Sealer will beat you 20 times out of 20 times. Chop Robinson will beat you 20 times out of 20 times. Bradley Chubb's going to beat you every time. Or you keep your tight end in on play. So you're going to be taking away a receiving threat, because our pass rush is so crazy. this is wild, and I never even thought of this. And again, this is something that, on top of that, you're going to have Terrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks right behind that pass rush. You're going to have two pretty decent, one of them elite linebackers guarding the middle of the field. Storm Duck, I'm hearing, is looking spectacular. You just have to find that other corner. Mike Hilton will do his thing. This is the thing. Like, Storm Duck, Mike Hilton, I'm good with those guys. I think Mike Hilton will do his thing. He's been the nickel corner for his entire career. He knows what he's doing. He will do a fine job. It's between Kendall Sheffield and Jack Jones, that second corner spot that I think. And then on top of that, we aren't even talking about this, but you're going to have Minka Fitzpatrick roaming the field with Melifonwu right next to him, which I think this safety tandem, people aren't even talking about this, but having Melifonwu with Fitzpatrick is a significant upgrade. And then, of course, Ashton Davis is going to be there. I think Ashton Davis is going to be more the backup, but having Fitzpatrick and Melifonwu, the only problem with Melifonwu is that he had like a freak injury last year. That was the issue with him. But when he was playing, he was a very good safety. So you're going to have this in your backfield with 4 pass rushers hitting you every single play. And then you're going to have the option. You don't even know. This is what I think is going to be crazy. You don't know what Jalen Phillips is doing. You have no idea. That's the crazy part. Which also what I've been hearing, and this is why it's like coming all together, is I was hearing that Jalen Phillips was going into coverage and he was playing very well in like coverage zone sets. And I was wondering, why is it only Jalen Phillips is in coverage zone? Because I'm just hearing, Chop Robinson, Bradley Chubb are just rushing the passer, where Jalen Phillips is like playing zones and all that stuff. This is why they're switching the defensive stance so that they can stay more in base, having a coverage 3, covering more of the field in a zone defense, and allowing the front 4 to just eat every single play. And you have to deal with four pass rushers. Like, there's really nothing you can do about that. Because like I said, Kenneth Grant is going to take Benito Jones' spot. I really highly doubt that Kenneth Grant is not going to be a starter this year. You're going to have 4 pretty good, 3 elite, and then 1 pretty good pass rusher that you have to deal with on every play. And then, like I said, you either account for Jalen Phillips or you hope he's playing coverage. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be wild, bro. That's going to be wild. I want to see how that plays out, because obviously we're more so this preseason game. We're going to see like Grayson Murphy, Mo Kamara. I think Kenneth Grant might play. I'm not sure. And Jordan Phillips, which would kind of resemble what we're trying to do here. And then you'd have Britt Gay and Quentin Bell as your backups. I mean, and not to mention, like we're even sitting here talking about this right now, not to mention that the backup already is Jordan Phillips from Maryland. So our draft picks are pretty much performing. You know what I'm saying? Like Grayson Murphy's undrafted. Mo Kamara is the backup, which is pretty good. You know what I'm saying? Like, for him to already be the backup and Jordan Phillips is in front of Matt Dickerson, that's what I'm finding strange. But I'm hearing Jordan Phillips is performing a lot. We also have to preface this that we are just, us as Dolphins YouTubers, we're just getting like information that people are writing somewhere. Like, we're not actually at the practice, which I will be at the practice, and then I'll be able to talk about it more in detail. But we're just getting word of what has happened, but we don't fully know. And, I was watching the Teron Armstead podcast, and he was talking about certain things that some of the reporters never really point out, where he was pointing it out, like Kenneth Grant. He was talking about Jordan Phillips. He was talking about Storm Duck, whereas like most of the people are saying that the corners are mid. What Teron Armstead was basically saying is that Storm Duck is 1-for-1 with Tyreek and Waddle. So I think it's going to be legit. And I personally like this defense a lot. Me picturing when I was doing the 3-4, I was thinking it was going to be like Grant, Sealer, and Benito Jones, with Bradley Chubb and Chop, and then we were going to mix in Jalen Phillips, or the other way around, like Chop was going to be a backup. This way, you have all your best players on the field at all times. Bro, I can't even like quantify this right now. Like, I never even thought of this, and it's so brilliant. This is why Anthony Weaver's the man, bro. This is so freaking. This is head coach material. Like, this is so brilliant, bro. To have these guys playing a 4-3, where you have a roaming outside linebacker. Because on top of it, you don't see, like typically you'd see in a depth chart, like linebacker. It still keeps Jalen Phillips as an outside linebacker, which makes me think that he's just a Sam linebacker that's going to be a roamer that's going to either blitz or just go into a short coverage in the mid. That's crazy, bro. That's crazy. They're going to eat this year, bro. Like, and if Storm Duck and Mike Hill can do their thing, and you know, whoever is the second guy can just hold their own for a little bit, because Storm Duck's going to take the ones, and Mike Hilton's probably going to take some of the ones because they're going to go in the nickel sometimes. So Mike Hilton will take that. It's just the second guy. You know, can he cover long enough? Which we'll see what happens. We might sign somebody else, but I like this a lot. I think this is explosive. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Just was making a quick review of this depth chart. Had to talk about this because that's legit, bro. That's legit. This defense just became explosive, bro. You're gonna have 4, maybe 5 elite pass rushers on the field at all times. Every defense is not gonna know what to do. And the way that Anthony Weaver plays, he roams. Like, he has people roaming around, so you're not even gonna know what to cover. I'm telling you right now, this defense, Anthony Weaver is going to get a head coaching job after this year. This defense is going to be nuts. It's going to be crazy, bro. Let me know down in the comments. Praise God, love God. He's great all the time. Fins up, baby. Peace.